Hi class, here we are in week 7 and I'd just like to spend a few minutes giving you a midweek update. Last week Eric did the midweek update and I apologize for being gone. I was out of town for a couple of days last week, and this week Eric has a lot going on. He was selected to serve on a really important campus committee. We're currently looking for a new vice president at the Larimer campus, and so he is serving in that capacity this week. So you will see him in discussion. You've been seeing him in discussion this week, but he was unable to join me today to do a midweek update. So I just have a few announcements. I really don't have all that much to get into this week. I wanted to congratulate you all for submitting your essay number 2 for the learning community in the Dropbox this week. That would have been your letters to Julie. I know that was a challenging assignment, and so you should pat yourself on the back. Now you've got 2 major essays turned in for this class. There's a total of 4 this semester, so you can think of yourself as halfway there. Typically, Eric and I would like to start grading those right away. Today would have been a good day for us to start, but because Eric needs to serve on this committee, and I have a lot of other obligations this week as well, we have decided to grade your SAT papers next week when we could find some chunks of a time where our schedules were aligned. And so we'll be grading them next week, and so you'll start to see those get returned to you in the Dropbox. We have a lot of fun grading the letters to Kant, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really interested in seeing how you all approached it. Week 7, here we are talking about, we're into a new unit, exploring new philosophers, specifically Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. We're doing a chapter that Eric has titled The Good Life. And so rather than focusing on one specific philosopher like we did with deontology, we're looking at how several philosophers line up with this idea of how do we go about living a good life? How do we achieve the good life? And so in this chapter, you've already got to read a little bit about Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. You'll get to hear more about Socrates next week when we continue reading this chapter. And so you'll get all kinds of different perspectives on how to achieve the good life. But I think the thread that kind of runs through this whole chapter is the idea of, high quality and low quality pleasures, and how much work do we really have to do as individuals if we want to achieve the good life. And you all are having some great discussion around these topics right now in the discussion board, both in the writing prompt number 11 and in the open discussion. And so I would encourage you to get in there and participate if you haven't done so yet. In the open discussion, you were asked to choose a word that you think captures what happiness means to you. And we're getting some really interesting responses in there. We've done this discussion a few times now, and Eric and I are always surprised that every semester there are students who come up with words that we've never seen other students use before. And so it's really exciting, and I think it's a neat challenge to try to boil down what you think happiness amounts to, or fulfillment amounts to, in one word. And so great work in the discussion board. Take some time to go in and take a look at that. And then in writing prompt number 11, some great things coming up in there as well. And that's really just a place for you all to kind of do some open form writing where you get to explore the ideas, really dig in and try to understand some of these concepts that you'll definitely need for our next major essay, essay number 3, which you'll learn about next week. So help each other in the writing prompt area, really push each other and try to help each other understand what Jeremy Bentham and what John Stuart Mill are saying, what this whole idea of high quality versus low quality, fecundity, what does it all amount to? So great work in there. I have a couple of odds and ends things I'd like to point out. So here I am, and I'll have to change the dates. Please excuse this fall reference here, but I've got week 8 pulled up, and I have published it, so I'll go back and change the dates on there today. But there's a couple of things in here you'll see that do not show up on the agenda. So we have the week 8 agenda, and it's really straightforward. You're going to take a look at the next essay that we're going to work on, which is not due for a couple of weeks. You're going to read the next section of the Good Life chapter. And I've given you two other items here, and these are optional items, but I think they're interesting and I think they're fun, and they really wouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes. So if you have time, take a look. The first one really came out of the discussion this week, and a lot of you were commenting on things like contentment and gratefulness. And what you're going to find in the reading for Eric is that you're going to come across a guy named Dan Zak, who basically was trying to address issues of what he sees as entitlement in American culture, where we think that we are owed more, or we think that we should have more than we do. And he claims that focusing on that entitlement, getting obsessed about all the things that we don't get or that we want, or the frustrations that we face because we want things and we want them now, is leading us astray. It's not causing us to be happy. And one of the things he suggests that we do is to spend our effort instead thinking about and focusing on what it is that we do have, and how it is that our goals are already being met, and where we already are achieving flourishing in our own life. And so the happiness challenge, this is the extra credit that I'd like to propose for next week. And I'm going to ask you to do something that Dan Zak refers to in his article, which a bunch of researchers did, and that is to create a gratitude journal, which sounds a little maybe touchy-feely, and maybe you feel like it is, but it's kind of an experiment. I'd like you to keep a gratitude journal for 3 days. You only have to spend a few minutes each day just writing down the things that you feel good about, that you feel content with, that you feel happy about, that you feel thankful or grateful for, and to see if the simple act of reflecting on those things and taking time to focus on them actually changes the way that you feel in terms of your levels of happiness. And so I'm giving you about a week to do this. And this is something that Eric and I have talked about the last few semesters, but we've never actually done. We've never actually asked students to take the happiness challenge or to try a gratefulness journal. So we're going to do this just as an extra credit opportunity, just to see if you can participate and to see what comes out of it. So a really low stakes thing, not required at all. Certainly don't give up doing your other assignments week 8 so you can focus on this. This is just kind of an extra little thing. But I will open a Dropbox, and then on Friday, March 13th by midnight, if you've done this, if you've taken the time to jot some things down for 3 days over the course of a week, and you can do more than 3 days if you want, I'm going to ask you to upload it to the Dropbox, and you can earn a few extra credit points in our class for taking this challenge. Should be fun. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point you toward is this document here. You might recall that a couple of weeks ago in our midweek update, Eric and I sort of got into an example where we were talking about Kant and what kinds of activities and behaviors Kant might forbid today. So aside from the big ones like lying and cheating and stealing, what are some things that he might say are either logical or illogical to do? And I threw out the example of choosing not to immunize children, because I have children, and that's something that my husband and I really grappled with, because you hear all kinds of things and you of course want to make decisions that are safest for your kids. But I wondered whether in the wake of the measles outbreak, whether choosing not to vaccinate kids was giving yourself preferential or special treatment, or giving your kids preferential or special treatment, because everybody in our society really couldn't get away with doing that, or we would have a lot of problems, right? We'd have a lot of diseases and things going around. So I wondered if that was an example of using other people as a means to an end. And Eric and I, some of you watched the video and you saw us struggle to try to come up with an answer, and Eric took it a step further and actually asked some of his colleagues what they thought. So we have other philosophers on campus, and he put the question out there, and a couple of us them responded in person, in passing in the hallway. But one philosopher who's a really smart guy and really thoughtful person named Rod Adams, he took some time to actually map out what is a deontological analysis of immunizations and whether or not they are logical. And so you might just find it interesting to go in and look at our email exchange from last week and this week. You may find it entertaining or insightful just to see how it is that philosophers grapple with these ideas that came up so long ago, how we're still trying to make sense of those things today. So if you feel like you're struggling in philosophy, you're not alone. So even philosophers and scholars are still trying to make meaning out of these things that brilliant people said a long, long time ago. So, okay. So the last thing I guess I wanted to comment on was that as we get close to the middle of the semester, you'll probably be greatly anticipating a spring break that we have coming up. And so depending on what campus you're based at, your spring break will fall during a different week. So the Larimer campus spring break happens the week of March 16th. The Westminster and I believe Boulder happens the week of March 23rd. As an online student in our class, it really doesn't matter to us which of those 2 weeks you choose to take. So you should just be prepared to commit to having one of those weeks as your spring break and then spend the other week doing classwork. So we'll have kind of like a staggered piece going on for a couple of weeks where some of you will be participating in class the week of March 16th and some of you will be participating in class the week of March 23rd. Because Eric and I are both on the Larimer campus, we will probably take the March 16th break because that aligns with our campus duties, but we'll still check in a little bit throughout that week. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that. We'll still have another week before we really need to think about it. Watch for announcements and emails to come out next week to help you work through that. So that's about all that I have for you in our midweek review this week. I hope things are going well for you. Keep up the great work. We're really enjoying all of the awesome discussions that you all are having, and we really look forward to reading your essay 2 papers. So yeah, have a great weekend, everybody.